I've shot with the Canon R5 Mark II for just over 18 months now, and it's been an incredible camera. It's been the primary camera for my video production company, as well as all the YouTube videos I've posted since getting it. And the camera is absolutely amazing, but it did end up creating some problems for me and my workflow. So I'm going to share with you why I upgraded to the R5 Mark II, what impressed me about the camera, what ended up being some of its biggest downfalls, and whether or not I'd pick this camera up today knowing what I know now. Let's get right into it. First, why did I upgrade from the Canon R6 Mark II? As much as I loved the Canon R6 Mark II, it was an incredible photo and video camera, but it fell short when it came to being a high-end camera for both photos and videos. Specifically, I was really drawn to the R5 Mark II's incredible photo and video performance. That is the 45 megapixel sensor that gives you 8K resolution photos and even 8K videos. And the Canon R5 Mark II was the first mirrorless camera from Canon to include C-Log 2, which is a huge upgrade when it comes to dynamic range, especially compared to the R6 Mark II's C-Log 3. There are also some other small benefits like the raw video recording I really wanted to play with on the R5 Mark II and the 4-channel audio recording, which is great for having backups on backups. But it didn't quite live up to all the expectations I had for it, and we'll cover that later on in this video. But first, let's start with what I enjoyed about this camera. First things first, I am a working video professional, and so I need a camera that's reliable, performs really well, and has high quality in both photo and video. And surprisingly, the Canon R5 Mark II helped elevate me and my production company because of its performance. The photo quality is absolutely stunning. Having such high-res images that you can easily crop into without losing detail is super handy. Same thing goes for its video quality. It is insanely beautiful how good the 4K and the 8K video is on this camera. In the 4K oversampled modes, you get insane detail even up at 30 frames per second. But what really impressed me and I've used for some of my spec work is the raw video performance. You can shoot either an 8K raw image in 12-bit color or a 4K SRAW image in 12-bit. And at first, I wasn't sure what to expect when it came from that 10-bit color to 12-bit color jump, but honestly, it makes a huge difference. The colors and the image that you get out of the raw video files is like nothing I've ever seen before. And for those high-end projects or my spec projects, I've been absolutely loving it. You also can shoot 4K 120 on this camera, something that the R6 Mark II could not. And what makes it special is that the 4K 120 doesn't get cropped in like it does on many of the Sony cameras. And because we have C-Log 2 on this camera, you definitely do get more dynamic range. This makes the images that much more lifelike because we can actually see more in the darker areas and the brighter areas of your image. The R5 Mark II also has incredible autofocus performance. You get a ton of upgrades to their autofocus, like their Digic processor that has like AI in it now. You also get register people priority, which allows you to take a photo of someone and then have the camera prioritize whenever it detects that person in your scene. This has been great for events like weddings or corporate events. Having that robust autofocus performance has been a huge quality of life improvement for me personally. They also included a few upgrades to the design and build of the camera that I was really excited to take advantage of. The first one being a full-size HDMI port. I know it's disappointing that Canon has taken this long to really provide us with that, but I'm so glad that that's becoming standard in their cameras. And at the time, the R5 Mark II was the very first mirrorless camera to have this full-size HDMI port. And so I'm so glad that I'm able to basically use only full-size HDMI cables for all my cameras. They also upgraded the EVFs significantly on the Canon R5 Mark II. It's not only just bigger, but definitely has more resolution when compared to the Canon R6 Mark II. You also have a CF Express card slot on this camera, and that's not necessarily new. You had that on the R5 Mark I, but I do love using CF Express cards now. They're a lot cheaper when it comes to price per gigabyte, and they perform so much better. So offloading the footage takes just seconds on a CF Express card versus doing it from the SD card. And the R5 Mark II introduced their new batteries, the LPE6P, which helps take advantage of some of those advanced features of the camera, as well as improving battery life. And one of my favorite low-key features of the R5 Mark II is proxy recording. I edit on a MacBook Pro M1 Max with no issues whatsoever, even on HEVC files, which are super compressed and typically pretty hard to edit. Despite this, I still really like using the internal proxy recording of the R5 Mark II. This does two things. First off, it means that I don't have to create proxies on Adobe Premiere, or rather Adobe Media Encoder in post-production. I already have the proxies ready when I offload the footage. And number two, I have much better performance when it comes to editing smoothly using those proxies. That ultimately means I can edit faster and more for my clients, which means I can make more money. And so far, the Canon R5 Mark II has pretty much paid for itself. Now, let's talk about some of the things I'm disappointed with on this camera. First off, it does have overheating issues. It's unfortunate, but it seems like the higher megapixel sensor of the R5 series is just a lot more susceptible to overheating because of all the extra processing it has to do of that 8K resolution sensor. I never overheated the Canon R6 Mark II. They really improved that camera's overheating functionality, but the R5 Mark II definitely still suffers from it. Now in 4K 24 fine mode, it hasn't been an issue. I've actually been able to record for very long periods of time and not have any overheating happen. However, if you do 4K 30 or above, even 4K 60, I unfortunately have run into overheating issues. And not just during the hot summer months, even on the cooler fall and sometimes even winter months. And that's a shame because this camera otherwise performs really well, and reliability and not having to worry about overheating is a huge factor. And so unfortunately, I did end up buying the $400 cooling fan grip for the R5 Mark II, which has been a huge help. You still can't overheat in 4K 60, but it definitely lasts significantly longer. And having that second battery in the camera is super nice for extended shoots, so you can use it for very long shoots like podcasts or even like wedding ceremonies. But paying $400 on top of the $4,200 I paid for the camera was a lot, and so I was kind of disappointed by that. The other issue I really had with the R5 Mark II is the fact that it does not have oversampled 4K 60. As I previously mentioned, you only get oversampled 4K on 24 and 30 frames per second. If you want to shoot 60 or 120 frames per second, you cannot have the camera oversample the 8K sensor. This isn't a huge deal breaker for me, but it did annoy me, and it was something I noticed because the Canon R6 Mark II's 4K 60 is oversampled, and that 4K 60 is incredibly sharp. And so having gone from that to the R5 Mark II's soft, kind of mushy looking 4K 60 was definitely a downgrade. Luckily for me, 4K 60 isn't important. I use it for a few clips here and there, but most of the time I'm in 24 or 30 frames per second. But if 4K 60 is important to you, then the Canon R5 Mark II really does suck in that case. You technically could record 8K 60 and then just compress that down into the 4K timeline in post, but I find that annoying because those files are going to be huge, and in that mode you can't actually record proxies. Speaking of large file size, that was actually something I was surprised by, is how much larger the files are for the Canon R5 Mark II, at least when you compare it to the R6 Mark II. The R6 Mark II had a 24 megapixel sensor, which was like 6K resolution or so. And the file sizes were very manageable, both in photo and in video mode. In fact, I used to record all my videos in 4K IPB Lite, and they would be much smaller than my Canon 5D Mark IV's 1080p video in All-I. But you have a 45 megapixel sensor on the R5 Mark II, so you end up with like 50 megabyte plus raw files. And when it comes to video, even in the most compressed format, which is the HEVC in LongOp, you still get much bigger file sizes than the R6 Mark II. And so you do need to consider the price of storage and the cards you need for the camera. And unfortunately right now in 2026, those aren't getting cheaper. Lastly, my biggest gripe with the R5 Mark II is the grip. I mentioned that I feel like it's necessary for dedicated video work, but when you add the grip, I mean, this thing becomes massive, and some people may be into this, but I found it a little annoying because I got really used to the compact form factor of the R6 Mark II. This does make me look and feel a little more professional. I will give credit where credit is due, but I just wish I didn't need the battery grip. It'd be nice to have as an option, but not have it as a requirement. And so even storing this in my camera bag is a little more cumbersome, and just some small nuanced things like that I don't really appreciate. But it does help with the grip because you have more real estate for your hand. But alas, I wish I could go smaller and still have that reliability that the cooling fan provides me. So the real question, was it worth the upgrade? This is where things kind of get complicated. So would I buy the Canon R5 Mark II today knowing what I know now? And honestly, no. But that's because of all the new options Canon has out now. When the R5 Mark II was released, it definitely was the best option out there for the time. And if I was still in that position of those are the only options, the R5 Mark II has been an incredible purchase. The upgraded performance and the quality of the photos and videos was definitely a huge jump for my production company. I blew away so many clients with these incredible large photos that they can use on all their websites and socials. And the video quality with the expanded C-Log 2 dynamic range was really nice and giving me more of that filmic look that I was going for. But given the options now, specifically the R6 Mark III and the C50 being much cheaper than the R5 Mark II, I do struggle thinking about buying the R5 Mark II. Number one, it's the most expensive of those three cameras, yet it still has some missing features from the other two, like open gate and that oversampled 4K 60 video. Honestly, if the R5 Mark II cost maybe $3,500 or $3,800, I definitely think I would still buy it today. I just wish I didn't have to cough up an extra $400, $500 for the battery grip just to get a reliable video camera. And so that's why I would lean towards something like the R6 Mark III or the C50, which I'm using right now. The R5 Mark II has been an incredible camera. I don't regret the purchase whatsoever, but I do think that in the current landscape, there might be better options depending on your needs. So if you're deciding between the Canon R5 Mark II and the Canon C50, you can check out my camera comparison video here. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. I appreciate every single one of you who do, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.